coffee burned Detective Michael Shaw's throat as he collapsed onto the precinct's bathroom floor, his vision blurred, throat constricting as if caught in an invisible vice. The fluorescent lights above him pulsed and wavered. He clawed at his neck, gasping for air that wouldn't come. His last conscious thought was of his daughter's smile, a smile he would never see again. The tile floor was cold against his cheek, too cold. Everything was going cold. 3 weeks earlier, "You look like hell warmed over, Shaw." Captain Ramirez dropped a case file onto Michael's already cluttered desk. Michael glanced up, dark circles prominent beneath his eyes. "Thanks for noticing," he muttered, reaching for the coffee mug that hadn't left his side since Sarah had left him 6 months ago, taking their daughter Lily with her. "New case, high priority." Ramirez tapped the manila folder. "Thomas Vega, pharmaceutical executive. His company, Neurocorp, is being investigated for falsifying clinical trial data on their blockbuster painkiller, NeuroEase. FDA's involved, but they want local cooperation. Something about evidence tampering." Michael flipped open the file, scanning the first page. Thomas Vega, 52, CEO of Neurocorp for the past decade. Company valued at billions. NeuroEase accounted for 60% of their revenue. What's the angle here? We handling corporate crime now? "There's more," Ramirez said, lowering his voice. 2 whistleblowers from the company have died in the past month. Officially, one was suicide, the other a home invasion gone wrong. But the timing is suspicious as hell. Michael's interest peaked. "And the feds think these deaths are connected to the data falsification?" "They're not saying that officially, but read between the lines." Ramirez gestured at the file. The FDA investigation started exactly 3 days before the first whistleblower was found. Michael leaned back in his chair, suddenly feeling more awake than he had in months. Who was first? Dr. Elena Morales, lead researcher on the NeuroEase trials. Found in her bathtub, wrists cut, left a note saying she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. And the second? Robert Chen, data analyst. Home invasion. Single gunshot to the head. Nothing taken from the house. Michael nodded, flipping through the file. "And we think Vega ordered these hits?" "We don't think anything yet. That's your job. Find out if there's a connection." Ramirez turned to leave but paused. "And Shaw? I know things have been tough since Sarah left. But I need you focused on this. These pharmaceutical companies have deep pockets and deeper connections." "I'm fine," Michael said automatically, already engrossed in the file. Ramirez sighed. "You're the best detective I've got. Just be careful with this one." After Ramirez left, Michael spent hours poring over the details. NeuroEase had been hailed as a breakthrough in chronic pain management, particularly for fibromyalgia and neuropathic pain. Minimal side effects, non-addictive, long-lasting relief. It had been fast-tracked through FDA approval 3 years ago, becoming an instant blockbuster drug. Patients swore by it. Neurocorp's stock had tripled. But according to a confidential FDA memo, there were concerns that the trial data had been manipulated to hide serious side effects, including rare but severe organ failure in a small percentage of patients. By nightfall, Michael had made his first move, contacting the FDA investigator assigned to the case, a Dr. Jillian Foster. "Detective Shaw," she greeted him over the phone, her voice crisp and professional. "I was told to expect your call. What can you tell me about the NeuroEase situation that isn't in the reports?" A pause. "I shouldn't be saying this, but I believe Dr. Morales didn't kill herself. The note didn't match her writing style, and she had just booked a vacation to the Maldives 2 days before her death." "And Chen, the data analyst?" "Robert was meticulous. He approached me privately 3 weeks ago, said he had evidence that the trial data had been manipulated at the highest levels. We were supposed to meet the day after he was killed." Michael's instincts flared. "Any idea what this evidence was?" "He didn't say specifically, but he mentioned that the liver toxicity rates in the trial were far higher than reported. If true, it means NeuroEase should never have been approved. And Neurocorp would lose billions," Michael concluded. "Not just that," Foster said grimly. "They'd face criminal charges, civil lawsuits from patients who suffered liver damage. It would destroy the company and everyone involved." including Thomas Vega. Especially him. He personally vouched for the drug safety profile to the FDA board. Michael thanked her and hung up, his mind already racing through the possibilities. Tomorrow, he'd pay a visit to Neurocorp headquarters. The gleaming glass tower of Neurocorp dominated the city skyline. Michael flashed his badge at reception and was escorted to a conference room where Thomas Vega kept him waiting for precisely 37 minutes of power move that Michael had expected. When Vega finally entered, he brought with him an air of practiced confidence and a corporate attorney. "Detective Shaw, I'm Thomas Vega. This is Patricia Winters, our general counsel." Vega extended his hand. He was tall, fit for his age, with silver hair and the kind of tan that came from expensive vacations. "How can I help the police today?" Michael shook his hand, noting the firm grip and the cold calculation in Vega's eyes. "I'm investigating the deaths of Elena Morales and Robert Chen." "Tragic losses," Vega said smoothly. "Elena was brilliant but troubled, and Robert's murderous, senseless act of violence. We've increased security for all our employees since then. I understand both were involved in the NeuroEase clinical trials." Patricia Winters interjected. "Detective, my client is voluntarily speaking with you as a courtesy, but I fail to see how Neurocorp's business operations are relevant to these unfortunate events." Michael kept his eyes on Vega. Two whistleblowers dead within weeks of an FDA investigation into data falsification seems relevant to me. A flash of something annoyance, perhaps fear, crossed Vega's face before his corporate mask slipped back into place. "These allegations of data falsification are baseless. NeuroEase has helped millions of patients reclaim their lives from chronic pain and made Neurocorp billions in the process. Success isn't a crime, detective. Fraud is. So is murder." Winters stood up. "This interview is over. If you have actual questions about the deceased employees, submit them in writing to our legal department." Vega remained seated, studying Michael. "No, Patricia, it's fine. Detective Shaw is just doing his job." He turned to Michael. "I had nothing to do with their deaths. Elena was unstable, ask anyone who worked with her. And Robert was killed in a home invasion in a neighborhood that's seen 3 similar break-ins this year." "Convenient explanations," Michael noted. "The truth often is." Vega stood. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run." As Michael left the building, he knew he'd struck a nerve. Vega was hiding something, but proving it would be another matter entirely. Over the next week, Michael dug deeper. He interviewed colleagues of both victims, pored over financial records, and met again with Dr. Foster from the FDA. Slowly, a picture emerged. Elena Morales had discovered that liver toxicity in the Phase 3 trials was occurring at nearly 3 times the rate reported to the FDA. She had confronted Vega privately, threatening to come forward. 3 days later, she was dead. Robert Chen had been more cautious. He'd created a hidden dataset showing the manipulation of trial results, encrypted it, and stored it somewhere secure. According to a colleague who wished to remain anonymous, Chen had called this his insurance policy. Michael needed to find that data. He suspected it was what got Chen killed. Late one night, as Michael was working in his apartment surrounded by case files, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Detective Shaw?" The voice was female, nervous. "Speaking. My name is Aisha Patel. I worked with Robert Chen at Neurocorp. We need to meet. I have what he was working on." Michael's heart raced. "Where are you now?" "At home, but I don't feel safe. Someone's been watching my apartment." "Pack a bag. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Michael brought Aisha to a hotel under a false name, setting up in a room he paid for in cash. She was in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, and the perpetually tired look of someone who'd been living in fear. "Robert gave me this the day before he died," she said, handing over a USB drive. "He said if anything happened to him, I should take it to the authorities. Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Aisha looked down. "I was scared. After what happened to him, to Dr. Morales. I have a family, detective." Michael nodded, understanding. "What's on this?" "The real trial data. Robert created a program, that automatically compared the raw data input with what was ultimately submitted to the FDA. It shows systematic removal of adverse events, particularly liver failures. 14 patients died during the trial. The official report lists only 3 deaths, all attributed to pre-existing conditions. Michael plugged the drive into his laptop. The files were comprehensive spreadsheets, internal emails, the algorithm Chen had created to track the changes. "This implicates Vega directly," Michael said, reading an email where the CEO instructed his team to clean up the hepatic event data before FDA submission. "He knew everything," Aisha confirmed. "It was his project from the start. NeuroEase was going to be his legacy." Michael copied the files and advised Aisha to stay in the hotel. "I'll have an officer posted outside your door. Tomorrow, we take this to the DA and the FDA." But when Michael arrived at the precinct the next morning, Ramirez called him immediately into his office. The captain wasn't alone. 2 men in suits stood by the window. "Shaw, these gentlemen are from the Department of Justice. They're taking over the NeuroCorp investigation." The older of the 2 men stepped forward. "Agent Daniels, we understand you've been investigating Thomas Vega and NeuroCorp." Michael tensed. "That's right. We're going to need all your files, notes, and any evidence you've collected. May I ask why DOJ is suddenly interested?" Daniels exchanged glances with his partner. "This has become a federal matter. That's all you need to know." Michael looked at Ramirez, who wouldn't meet his eyes. "Captain?" "It's out of our hands, Shaw. NeuroCorp operates across state lines. FDA involvement makes it federal jurisdiction." Something felt wrong. Michael had worked with federal agents before. This wasn't normal protocol. "I have a witness in protective custody. A NeuroCorp employee with evidence of data falsification and potentially Vega's involvement in 2 homicides." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "We'll need to speak with this witness. I'd like to be present for that conversation." "That won't be necessary," Daniels said coolly. "Where's the witness now?" Michael hesitated, his instincts screaming at him. "I'll bring her in myself. This afternoon." After the agents left, Michael confronted Ramirez. What the hell was that? Since when does DOJ swoop in without warning on a local homicide investigation? Ramirez sighed heavily. "Politics, Shaw. Vega has friends in high places. Senator Garrison sits on NeuroCorp's board. He made some calls. So we're just rolling over? 2 people are dead. We're following protocol. If DOJ wants the case, it's theirs." Michael stormed out, heading straight for the hotel where he'd left Aisha. When he arrived, the officer he'd posted at her door was gone. Inside the room, so was Aisha. "Damn it!" Michael punched the wall in frustration. His phone rang. It was Aisha. "Detective, they came from Meiman, claiming to be federal agents. Where are you?" "I ran. I didn't trust them. I'm at the train station." "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." When Michael reached the station, Aisha was huddled in a corner, clutching her backpack. "They knew where I was," she said, trembling. "How did they know?" Michael had a sinking feeling. Someone at the precinct had tipped them off. "We need to go somewhere safe, somewhere off the grid." He took her to his ex-wife's lake cabin. Sarah wouldn't be there. She and Lily were living with her parents in another state. The cabin had been a point of contention in their separation, but Michael had insisted on keeping it. Now he was grateful for the isolated location. "What's our plan?" Aisha asked as they settled in. "We need to get this evidence to someone who can't be bought or intimidated. I have a contact at the Tribunian investigative journalist. Once the story breaks, it'll be too big to bury." Michael called his contact, arranged a meeting for the following day. But as night fell, his unease grew. He checked his phoneno signal. The cabin's landline was dead. "We need to leave," he told Aisha. "Now." They were too late. Headlights swept across the windows as vehicles approached. Michael peered out 3 SUVs, men with tactical gear emerging. "Back door," he whispered, drawing his service weapon. They slipped out into the woods behind the cabin. Michael knew these woods from childhood. There was an old hiking trail that led to a road about a mile away, if they could reach it. Gunshots rang out behind them, not warning shots. They were shooting to kill. Michael returned fire, covering Aisha as they ran through the darkness. They reached the road, but were immediately caught in headlights, another vehicle waiting. A familiar figure stepped out. "Detective Shaw," Thomas Vega said calmly. "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Michael aimed his weapon at Vega. "It's over. The evidence is already out there." Vega smiled. "No, it isn't. Your journalist friend had an unfortunate accident an hour ago. Car crash. Very tragic." Michael felt cold dread spread through him. Behind Vega, more men approached, weapons drawn. "Ms. Patel," Vega continued, "you should have stayed loyal to the company. We reward loyalty generously." "You killed 14 people in those trials," Aisha said, her voice shaking, "and covered it up. 14 lives weighed against millions, helped by NeuroEase. It was a necessary sacrifice." Michael kept his gun trained on Vega. "And Elena? Robert? Were they necessary sacrifices too?" "They made their choices." Vega's face hardened. "As you've made yours." It happened in an instant. Michael saw one of Vega's men aim at Aisha. He shoved her aside as he fired at Vega, hitting him in the shoulder. Return fire erupted around them. Pain exploded in Michael's chest. He fell, the world spinning around him. He heard Aisha scream, more gunshots, then silence. He awoke in a hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting him to machines. Captain Ramirez sat beside him. "You've been out for 3 days," Ramirez said, leaning forward. "Shot twice. You're lucky to be alive." Michael tried to speak, his throat raw. "Aisha?" Ramirez looked away. "I'm sorry, Shaw. She didn't make it." "Vega?" "Wounded but alive. Already released from hospital. He's claiming self-defense, says you went rogue, kidnapped an employee, tried to extort him." Michael struggled to sit up. "The evidence?" "Gone. The USB drive wasn't found at the scene." "Of course it wasn't. The feds?" "Officially, there is no DOJ investigation into Neurocorp. The men who came to the precinct. No record of them." Michael closed his eyes, the full weight of what he was up against crushing down on him. "So that's it? They win?" Ramirez hesitated. "There's an internal affairs investigation into your actions. Unauthorized protective custody. Discharge of your weapon off duty." "It doesn't look good, Shaw. They're going to pin this on me." "I'm doing what I can, but—" Ramirez stood. "Get some rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger." After Ramirez left, Michael lay in the darkness, pain pulsing through his body with each heartbeat. 4 people dead. No evidence, no witnesses. Just his word against a billionaire with political connections. He was released from the hospital a week later, suspended pending the IA investigation. His apartment felt emptier than ever. On his kitchen counter, he found a gift basket with a card. "Wishing you a speedy recovery. TV." Inside was a bottle of expensive scotch and a box of gourmet chocolates. Beneath them, a smaller box containing a vial of pills labeled NeuroEase for breakthrough pain management. A warning, or perhaps an invitation to end it all. Michael ignored the basket. Instead, he dug through his case notes, looking for anything he might have missed. There had to be a way to prove what had happened, to get justice for Elena, Robert, and Aisha. He started visiting pharmacies, collecting statements from patients who'd experienced liver problems while on NeuroEase. He reached out to former Neurocorp employees, building a network of potential witnesses. Most were too afraid to talk, but some provided small pieces of the puzzle. 2 weeks after the shooting, Michael was called to a meeting with the police commissioner and Neurocorp's legal team. They offered him a deal: full pension, all medical expenses covered, no criminal charges if he signed an NDA, and admitted to procedural violations. He refused. That night, he received a call from an unknown number. "Detective Shaw, this is Patricia Winters, Neurocorp's counsel." Michael nearly hung up. "Wait," she said quickly. "I'm not calling officially. I can't be part of this anymore." "Part of what?" "Vega is having NeuroEase reformulated. Quietly. The new version eliminates the liver toxicity issue. He's covering his tracks." "Why are you telling me this?" A pause. "Elena Morales was my friend. We were in law school together. I didn't know what Vega had done until it was too late. Do you have proof? Anything I can use? Not directly, but I know where Robert Chen kept his backup files. He told me once, after a company happy hour, said he didn't trust the cloud. The location was a safe deposit box at First National Bank, registered under Chen's mother's maiden name. The next morning, Michael went to the bank, but was told he'd need a court order to access the box. He spent the next day convincing a sympathetic judge to grant the order, arguing that the box might contain evidence relevant to Chen's murder. By the time he returned to the bank with the order, the box had been emptied. When? Michael demanded. This morning, the manager said, checking the log. A woman came with the key and proper identification. What was the name on the ID? The manager showed him, Patricia Winters. Michael raced to NeuroCorp headquarters but was stopped by security in the lobby. Patricia Winters was unavailable, they said, had been unavailable since she tendered her resignation yesterday. That evening, Patricia's body was found in her car, in the NeuroCorp parking garage. Carbon monoxide poisoning, another apparent suicide. Michael was running out of options and allies. His IA hearing was scheduled for the following week. Without evidence, he would lose everything: his badge, his reputation, possibly his freedom. In desperation, he did the one thing he'd been avoiding. He called Sarah. I need to see Lily, he told his ex-wife. Just once before. Sarah must have heard something in his voice. Michael, what's going on? He told her everything. To his surprise, she listened without interruption. I still have friends at the state attorney's office, she said when he finished. Let me make some calls. 2 days later, Sarah arranged a meeting with a senior prosecutor from the state attorney's office, who operated independently from the local DA. Michael brought his entire case file, including statements from patients and former employees. It wasn't enough for criminal charges against Vega, but it was enough to reopen the investigations into the deaths of Elena Morales, Robert Chen, and Aisha Patel. As Michael left the meeting, he felt something he hadn't felt in weeks: hope. It was short-lived. He returned to the precinct the next day to find Ramirez waiting with news. The prosecutor had recused herself from the case, citing a conflict of interest. Her husband's law firm represented a subsidiary of NeuroCorp. I'm sorry, Shaw, Ramirez said, genuinely regretful. I think you should take the deal they offered. This fight, you can't win it. Michael went through the motions of his days, preparing for his IA hearing while watching the NeuroCorp machine systematically dismantle his case and his career. News stories began appearing, questioning his mental stability after his separation. Old cases were scrutinized for misconduct. Anonymous sources cited his obsession with Thomas Vega. The morning of his hearing, Michael stopped at the precinct for coffee. As he poured a cup in the break room, a junior officer approached him. Detective Shaw, someone left this for you at the front desk. It was a plain envelope containing a single key and an address. The address led to a storage unit facility on the outskirts of the city. The key opened Unit 247. Inside was a single cardboard box containing a laptop, external hard drives, and notebooks. A note on top read simply, Patricia's insurance policy. Patricia Winters had been thorough. The laptop contained emails, memos, and recordings of board meetings where the NeuroEase data falsification was explicitly discussed. One video showed Vega instructing his team on how to handle the whistleblowers, make them understand the consequences of disloyalty. It was everything Michael needed. He copied the files and sent them to every news outlet in the city, the FDA, the state attorney's office, and the DOJ. Then he headed to his IA hearing, a new confidence in his step. He never made it there. As he drove, his phone rang. Sarah. Michael, men came to my parents' house asking about you. They had badges but wouldn't give their names. I'm scared. Take Lily and go somewhere safe. Don't tell me where. I'll contact you when this is over. After hanging up, Michael noticed a black SUV following him. Then another. They were closing in. He accelerated, trying to lose them in traffic. For a moment, he thought he had succeeded. He pulled into the precinct parking garage, parked, and headed for the elevator. A sharp pain in his neck stopped him. He reached up, felt a small dart. The world began to blur around the edges. He woke up in his own apartment, head pounding. On his coffee table sat a cup of coffee and a note. A peace offering. Let's talk. TV. Michael knew he should walk away. Call for backup. But backup hadn't come through for him yet. The coffee smelled inviting after days of stress and little sleep. He took a sip. It tasted unusually bitter. Thomas Vega emerged from Michael's kitchen. I underestimated you, Detective Shaw. A mistake I rarely make. Michael tried to stand but found his limbs unresponsive. What did you do? A special formulation, ironically derived from our research that didn't make it into NeuroEase. Untraceable. They'll find nothing in the autopsy. Michael's chest tightened. The evidence is already out there. You can't stop it now. Vega smiled thinly. Perhaps, but I have contingencies. Offshore accounts. A new identity prepared. By the time your evidence makes its way through the system, I'll be enjoying retirement on a beach far from here. They'll find you. Michael's words slurred. His vision began to darken at the edges. Maybe someday, but you won't be there to see it. Vega checked his watch. I should go. Can't be here when they find you. As Vega left, Michael tried to reach for his phone. His arm felt leaden, unresponsive. The room spun around him. With his last ounce of strength, he dragged himself toward the bathroom. If he could just make himself vomit. The coffee burned Detective Michael Shaw's throat as he collapsed onto the precinct's bathroom floor. His vision blurred, throat constricting as if caught in an invisible vice. The fluorescent lights above him pulsed and wavered. He clawed at his neck, gasping for air that wouldn't come. His last conscious thought was of his daughter's smile he would never see again. The tile floor was cold against his cheek. Too cold. Everything was going cold. 5 days later, Thomas Vega was arrested at a private airfield as he attempted to board a flight to a non-extradition country. The evidence Michael had sent out had reached its destinations. Neurocorp's stock plummeted as the scandal broke. Class action lawsuits were filed on behalf of patients harmed by NeuroEase. At Michael Shaw's funeral, Captain Ramirez presented his family with a posthumous commendation for valor. Sarah stood with Lily, accepting the folded flag, tears streaming down her face. Justice had been served, but at a terrible price. In the end, the truth had come out, but truth alone couldn't bring back the dead. It couldn't restore a little girl's father. It couldn't erase the pain of those who had suffered. The system had failed Michael Shaw and those he fought to protect. The powerful had almost won, and even in defeat, they had claimed one final victim. As mourners departed the cemetery, a light rain began to fall. Among the departing crowd, a man opened a bottle of water and swallowed a small white pill for his chronic pain, the new, improved formulation from Neurocorp's competitor. Somewhere in the corporate world, another profit margin was being calculated, another risk assessment performed, another corner prepared to be cut, and the cycle of injustice prepared to begin anew. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.